Good afternoon and welcome to another Finex webinar. My name is Tamara Vrhovic-Sekac and I'm an international business expansion manager in Finex. Today we'll be talking about top 7 reasons why retirement planning is important, and I would like to greet our guest, Giga Vigentini. Giga, hi, welcome.
Hello, Tamara. Nice to meet you and nice to talk to you.
Giga, just to say a few words about you. So you're a founder of Irrational Retirement Blog, and I would call you a specialist on European pension systems, and this is why I wanted you to join us today. I had a really good discussions with you regarding how things are in Europe regarding retirement systems and what can be done in the future. Can you tell me what was maybe a motive behind your blog?
Well, yes, I started writing a blog, Irrational Retirement, about 3 years ago. As my main job, I work as director of retirement solutions for one of the largest private pension funds in Slovenia. And I've always had quite a lot of contacts also in other EU countries or America with people in our business, in retirement plans or in financial services. And one area which I also like very much, which I stumbled across some 8-9 years ago, is behavioral economics. Because I was searching for answers why most people don't save for retirement, why they are not even remotely interested in saving for retirement. And I stumbled upon the first books from behavioral economics, from Richard Thaler, from Shlomo Benazzi. And I really loved the field, fell in love with it. I also did my master's degree from behavioral biases related to retirement saving, because I saw this is a really one of the best examples of behavioral economics in action. Is why aren't people saving for retirement? What errors do they do when they invest money, when they decumulate it or spend it? So this is then I decided to focus on this area, which also coincides, of course, with my job. And since I also like to write and share my findings, I said, okay, let's start a blog and I will share some of the things I do in our company, but then also share some other thinking and share it with the world and get the feedback. And from it, this is how I started the blog, to basically share our experience, because I'm a big fan of not keeping things, just what
For
you
yourself.
find out for yourself. Share it, to be public knowledge. Maybe somebody else will find it interesting or will have some comment, will help me improve later. So this is why I started my blog, and also to keep my English, to practice my English a bit. So that's why I started it, sharing it, and I had many good feedback from it. Got lots of friends from all over the world through my blog, and this is why I'm doing it. Yeah.
I think really retirement planning in general, retirement is very, very important topic, and often people don't want to think about it too early because they think they have plenty of time to start thinking about it. But this is the reason why we are here today, to teach them that maybe there is a better approach to this strategy. And I'd say behavioral economics are something that is really interesting, and for me is something that I always love to read as well, especially when it comes to investing and how the emotions basically steer people's minds when it comes to investing and their long-term goals. And pension is definitely one of the, I'd say, the most important long-term financial goal, and one of the goals we have to start with. So what can we say? Retirement is pretty much inevitable. People cannot work. I mean, they can fly. They can love working. There are some people who love to work, and they basically work until the end. But most of people like to maybe spend their time a bit different. When we talk about money in general, we always say that it's a tool that gives us freedom. It gives us a possibility. It gives us a choice. So we might not talk about gaining financial independence or retirement early. We are not going to talk about FIRE movement today. But what we want to talk about is basically the situation in Europe, what is happening, what are some projections for maybe next 10, 20 years, and what can we do to basically secure ourselves a better financial future and retirement, and what are the perspectives from the data that we have today.
Well, yes, retirement is something that we all hope we will get to it if we're not so lucky to die before we retire. So it's for sure a period of our lives that I think first will come sooner than we most expect it. When we are young, we say, oh, I will never live until retirement. But when you're my age, you start a bit looking at it. Maybe in 10 years, I will really start looking at it. So it's a really thing that changes with time, with perspective. And it will be a long period of our life. It will be, if we will be lucky, because average life expectancy is increasing, and like the average age that somebody spends in retirement in Slovenia is around 25 years. So we're talking about a really long part of our lives. And of course, we would like to live it as comfortably as possible. And as you said, money savings, it's not the end goal. What we will be able to get from those savings, what kind of standard of living will we be able to guarantee ourselves? I mean, that's the main question. Nobody has a goal of, I want to have 300,000 euros saved up in retirement. But I have a goal of maybe having a weekend house somewhere on the coast, be able to spend some money on a dinner if I would like to go, maybe take a trip. I think those are more concrete wishes that we envision for ourselves in retirement, or maybe have time to spend it on my hobbies, which I don't have enough today. So this is again some, I think, luxuries or common things that we would like to buy with our money. So I think it's important when talking about retirement, we're just not talking about building some assets or some wealth, which is really impersonal, doesn't click with me something, doesn't spark my emotions. I think it's important to talk about what kind of life I will want to have in retirement, which will be, as we said, a long part of our lives. If we will be lucky that we will be healthy in that period, we would for sure most like to travel, eat some good food, spend time with our family. And these are all things that we will need money. Even if we are honest, to be healthy also requires some money. And in the future, probably it will require more and more money, because also public healthcare systems are deteriorating, and the scope of services you get in a public health system is becoming lower and lower. Retirement homes cost a lot, nursing homes cost a lot. So I think these are all things that we need to think now. But the main thing I think is that we would like to have an enjoyable retirement as possible. And this is to have a good time in it, or to be able to live a good life in retirement.
Yes, I think it's very important to visualize what we want once we retire, and maybe this way it's going to be easier for us to set up those goals. But this is definitely the starting point, setting up our own goals. And in a way, we know that especially when we talk about finances, setting up goals often leads to actually achieving goals, because people are more determined to whatever they set as their goal. The fact that, yes, retirement is inevitable. And as you said, different people may wish different things once they retire, but it is really important for everyone to be financially stable and independent after reaching the retirement, right? We tend to see nowadays, I mean, definitely we talk about Europe, and as I always say, we like to say Europe is one market, but Europe is very much different markets. So from pension system perspective, it's also very much different. From the standard living standard perspective, it's also different. So, for example, if we talk about Croatia, I can say that nowadays, basically, an average pension is maybe a little bit above 30% of the average salary, which means that people, once they retire, they see a sudden drop in their living standard, a huge one. And as we progress, all the projections and things that we will show in this webinar lead to that while the situation might not be as bad everywhere in Europe, basically the data tend to tell us that the trends are the same. The population is growing older, there is less kids, and the pension systems are already stretched as we speak. So
Yes, I think
it's
this.
definitely a very important topic to talk about and to basically realize that we need to do something about it. The days when our grandparents or even parents were not in a way pushed to think so much about their retirement age because the state was taking care of it in a different way, then it's nowadays are gone. And our generation already, I think, is going to see big changes once we are retired, unless we actually take things into our hands.
Yes, I think, as you said, Europe, each country has its own pension systems, and they're very different from country to country. But what we all Europeans have in common that Europe is aging. The populations of all countries are aging, same as Japan, South Korea. So I think this is one thing we have in common. There is less and less young working age people, and there is more and more people who are retired, and those are living because of improvement in healthcare longer and longer. So this is putting more and more pressure on pillar first pensions, and of course the only logical consequence is that we have to work longer and public pensions are getting lower and lower. So I think this is now a shift that is happening for the last 30 years. It's not happening overnight, but we all have a sort of status quo bias, and when changes are happening, we rather like to avoid them, like an ostrich sticking his head in the sand. This is what we all like to do daily because we like to live our lives with as little thinking as possible. And these kind of changes require that we take care on ourselves, some of the responsibility that was before only on the state. If we're honest, also in ex-socialist countries that we were under the different system, the state also clearly told us that the state will take care of us in all pillars of our personal lives. We will get an apartment, we will get a job, we will get a pension, we will get health system, whatever. Now that we are transitioning or transitioned already to Western capitalist system, it's a different story. Of course, some of the responsibility also comes on the individual, and this is now also happening with pensions, that it is on us, individuals, that we secure one portion of the income that we will get in retirement. Of course, pillar one pensions will continue to be the main source of income for even future retirees, and that's the only, of course, that will remain a fact even in the future. Sorry. I really don't agree with people who are scaring people, oh, you will not get any public pension and so on. Of course you will get it, but it will be lower than today. So because public pension systems are really adaptable, if they will have more and more less and less income and more outgoing expenses for public pensions, they will lower that amount. So I think first pillar systems are flexible, so we will all get public pension even in the future, but it will be lower than today. The same as it's probably very safe to say that what we get from public healthcare system now, the scope of it will not be as high of services that we will get in 20 years.
So we can already see the trend of deterioration, right?
Yes,
in standards.
It's happening every day. And as you also said, public pensions are already falling if we compare them to, let's say, net salaries. In Slovenia, public pensions are still quite high from first pillar. They're at around 58% of net salary, which is compared to other countries, okay, but it's still a 40% drop from your salaries.
Yes. And I
with
have here some
projections,
statistics
it's even
regarding
lower.
Europe, but I can say, for example, in Croatia, it is quite alarming already because there is 1.18 working persons to one pensionist. So it's already
Yes,
at
this is
the
already
stage where,
happening. And I also think that it's really important to tell people that it's not a conspiracy, because sometimes
yeah,
if people feel that public pensions are falling because of I don't know what kind of conspiracy. They're falling because the key is, as you said, the ratio, how many people are working and how many people are retired and how long do those retirees live in retirement. So that's the main number. And of course, this ratio is coming from 4 to 1 to 1, basically one working people, one worker will support one retiree. And it's total common sense that the pension of that retiree will not be as high as it used to be, where 4 working people were supporting that pension. So I think
yes.
this is something that needs to be said out loud to people. It's not a conspiracy. It's nobody's fault, as we like to
No, and
always point
maybe
the finger.
here I would like just to mention, maybe some people are not aware of how the first pillar works, but basically the people working today are paying for those that are retired today. So meaning whatever is going out of your salary is not being saved for you, but it's used at this moment for the people who used to do the same thing before. So this is
True.
how it
This is
works.
again, most people don't understand how the pay-as-you-go systems work, and I think that's why it's crucial we get this in high school from as early age as possible. I try to teach my kids because I'm always asking them about school. Have you learned about how pensions work? And they haven't come to it. So I'm doing my part. Of course, if people have the basic knowledge, then it's easier for them to understand. Most people say, I have been working for 40 years, paying contribution.
Yes,
Now
I
it's
deserve.
my time to receive the benefit. And now I'm disappointed at how low it is. But if you would understand that the moment you pay contributions, the same month they go out to a
Yes.
retiree,
And there is
then you
less and
understand.
less youngsters who are going to pay
So,
that from their
then you
salary.
see it's not a conspiracy. Nobody stole that money. It's just the way the system is set up. And this also now, if we will teach younger people this, I think then they will be more inclined to save, because they will say, okay, I understand how the system works. I know I will get something, but I will not get probably that much as my parents did. Okay, I will start from my first day when I start working. I will also put some money aside. In America, it's totally normal that you start saving for your retirement your first working day. In Europe, it's
Yes,
not a
yes.
norm, for sure not.
Well, we tend to have different mentality, but we need to get there. It's the same thing generally with investing in Europe, because people, special generations before, they used to have different ways with, I don't know, high interest rates in the banks, stuff like that, and they were not really used to investing, and they didn't know enough about investing. And nowadays it really became a must, because nowadays if you want to make your money work for you, you really need to invest. It's becoming inevitable. So it's, I would say, the same thing in the States. You see people more inclined to do that, or even, for example, in countries like Sweden, it is much more normal that they, take care of these things um, from their early age. I would say they don't expect miracles to happen from the um, state system, but they take care of their own future from very early on. So this is something that we need to talk about and educate people, so they realize that things have changed. And often financial issues are not the most liked to be discussed among people, even if we start from something like budgeting and why it's good, to have a look at your budget at home and how you can maybe potentially have more savings to put on a side and stuff like that. Those are the topics, like you said, people tend to leave for later.
It's not an interesting topic. We will all rather talk about buying cars, shoes,
Yes,
whatever. I mean, saving
Spending
for
money.
retirement is just not an interesting topic. Again, people are bombarded with all kinds of marketing to spend money. It will make you happy. It will make you pretty. I think this is also one thing that
Consumerism, yes.
the saving industry needs to better, but the consumer industry is, of course, much stronger in this way, because most also I would say a big part of the financial services industry is also has their own part in it, because they make it very easy for people to spend, to take credit, to take a mortgage, to put it in several installments, whatever. So and enable people to buy things they don't need in the first place in most cases. And only a small part of the financial services industry is focused on helping people to save, which is a totally
and educate them. Yes.
True. Yes. Although everybody says out loud that they're interested in doing this, but we know maybe only, I don't know, I'm guessing 20% of the industry is really helping people. The other part is just helping people spend more and more. And that's why I think most systems are rigged against people that even if they want, I think most people like to save because they would like to have some security. But it's really, in today's world, it's so tough because kids from the youngest age are bombarded with buy this, buy that. Their parents are bombarded. I have 2 young kids. It's tough to stand against it because then you are the black sheep and you try to teach your kids the other way, stimulate them in all possible ways to build up their skills, their saving skills, because I think it's a skill like any other. You have to train it, build it, and if you don't have somebody who will be your trainer with this, your partner in this, it's really, really, really tough. And we all want things. We all want things, but you really need to stop and think about it. Do I really need that new mobile phone that I don't need half the features in it? Or do I just want it to be cool for 5 seconds and then €1,000 will be gone? Yeah. It's tough.
I mean, when you think how much they cost nowadays, it's amazing, no? And we tend to just take it as granted. But you're right. I mean, when it comes to children, I have my own 6-year-old, and the first lessons about money I gave him were actually how money is connected to time, and that the time is one of the resources that we cannot have more than we actually do. So that's something that I try to connect because, kids, they love to spend their time with parents. So I try to explain to him that every time we buy something, it means that we spend a pool of money that mommy and daddy earned, which means that mommy and daddy have to go and earn again in order to, replace that money and stuff like that. So it was just, the first lesson to teach him how it relates to time spent with us. And that actually, it means that we need to go and work and we cannot play. So it is, as you say, very important to do it from very early age. And nowadays, the need for something is created every second. As you say, advertising is bombarding us with all the things that we need and that we didn't even know that we need. But often I talk to our clients and I tell them that, they can maybe just go to their garage and check how many things they have there, how many bikes or how many different tools or whatever, they like as sport equipment and they don't use, And if they could write how many days in terms of work it costed them, how many days they have of their life have they spent for the things that are sitting in the garage and they are never used. So it's maybe a different approach, but I think it teaches us in a way when we have a look and we see all these things there that might never get used, but we spend money for them and we spend our time for that. So as you mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the things that we need to think nowadays is that we do tend to live longer, which is great. But it also means that we need to start thinking and maybe saving a part of our money, depending certainly on the income, depending on the age. The income also differs depending on our age. Obviously, as we age, we hopefully earn more as we are well into our careers. But what we also want to show today is how important it is to start as early as possible. What long-term investment and what long-term savings and compound interest can do for you and for your financial stability in the future. So basically, planning ahead is really very, very important. And also, I think we can see nowadays in many places in Europe that people, once they do actually enter retirement, they tend to be, economically, I would say, unable to take care of themselves. So they become dependent on their children or others. And I believe that this is something that no one wants to find himself or herself in such a position. But it does happen. And in order to prevent that, the early planning is really essential.
Yes, I think, as you said, time is a really precious thing, and it can be our biggest advantage if we start really early with the help of compound interest and the yield we get on certain investments. We can really start with smaller amounts that will be compounded to larger amounts. So this really can work for us. If we start saving today with just 50 euros or 30 euros, we have to know that those 30 euros will be compounded for 40 years. And that would be a huge, huge, huge difference. And you have many simulations online how somebody who started low will have in the end more than somebody who will start only, 10 years before retirement with a much bigger amount. So I think this, knowing the power of compound interest and the yield that we get on a certain investment is really, really important. And as you said, the main thing is for young people to start, even if with lower amounts, and then you can always increase them as your career flourishes. But the most important thing is to start. This is why I'm a huge fan of automatic enrollment in retirement plans, which some countries already implemented, because I think it's a really helpful behavioral push that helps people to start saving. Because without this push, the moment when we actually start is really tough. And
we keep postponing it.
Yes, we just keep postponing it inevitably. And if we're lucky, somebody will push us. Maybe somebody in the company, maybe our parents or our partner or something. I don't know. I forced my wife to start saving, or I will open saving account for my kids. That's why I will take care of them, and then they will continue on their way. But if you don't have somebody to give you a push, or somebody where you are working, or your employer, I think this is the most crucial part, that somebody helps you, push you to start saving, whether it's the government, whether it's the pension system, whether it's the employer. Somebody needs to give you that push, because when you're talking to people, and also I've read many surveys, if you will ask 10 people on the street, is saving for your retirement or for your future smart? Most people will say, yes, it's a smart thing to do. And then you ask them, do you save? Most people will say, no, but I intend to. So that's the crucial point. Somebody needs to help you get over that ledge, I would say. And then once you start it, it's, I think, the best, the easiest tool is to have automatic payroll deduction in your monthly saving plan. And then you don't have to make this tough decision every month. So I think here I always remember, and also wrote a blog post about Odysseus. I remember the Greek hero. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
He has a really good lesson how that also translates to saving. On his epic trip back to Ithaca, Odysseus also sailed past the island of Sirens. Remember? So the sirens, of course, as the story says, they sang with their beautiful voices and they lured sailors to the cliffs and they crashed their ships. Yeah, and Odysseus, being Odysseus, he still wanted to hear the sirens, how they sing, but he, of course, didn't want to crash his ship. And he used a really smart, of course, technique because he was a smart guy. He asked his crew to tie him to the ship's mast and not to untie him, no matter what he says. And then he also instructed his crew to stuff their ears with beeswax. So they tied him to the mast, sailed past the sirens. Sirens sang their song. Odysseus begged his crew to untie him, but of course they didn't listen. And the crew also didn't hear the sirens because they had beeswax stuck in their ears. So they sailed past it, and Odysseus heard them sing and survived. What's the lesson of the story? Odysseus used the ship mast as a commitment device because he tied himself to the mast. Basically, a commitment device is a certain device or an action that, once we decide upon one action, really prevents us from changing our will. So this is a monthly installment to a saving plan. If I have it automatically every month when I get my salary, 100 euros goes directly to my savings account. This is the same principle that Odysseus used because I'm not tempted then to spend those 100 euros. They automatically go to my saving account and I'm basically effortlessly saving for 30, 40 years without thinking about it. Just the initial decision, I need to do it. And then it's a really, really, really useful tool that helps me stay on the right path.
We always say and advise people exactly what you said, pay yourself first, right? So at the beginning of the month, when the money comes, you basically immediately send it every month to a place where it needs to be sent, including your investment account or savings account or whatever, and then you have whatever you have left. So this is the best way, and definitely I want to add on that what you mentioned, that nowadays you can really invest basically from 10 euros a month. When it comes to ETFs, for example, in our portfolios or in our PEP, I see that we have one question regarding PEP. I am going to answer that, and we can touch more on PEP topic. If you are interested, please do write us your questions. We are here to give you as many information as we can. Also about PEP, for those ones who might not know, PEP is a pan-European personal pension product, or let's put it simply in something in the bracket of, let's say, third pillar or voluntary pension, which is mobile and can basically be transferred from country to country. Regulation is not in all countries at the moment at the same level, so it's still in the process, but Finax became first provider it's already 1.5 years ago in Slovakia, and now it's we celebrated already 1 year since we started with PEP in Croatia and in Czech Republic. Then end of last year we also started in Poland. So basically, as the legislation is catching up, we are also trying to catch up with them, and we are still the only provider in Europe. We hope that there will be more providers, as the idea behind the product is really great. We can discuss it a little bit later. I want to hear your view on PEP, but just let's go back to what we've been talking and the fact that, yes, I have here another chart which is supposed to show us this old age dependency index number of old per 100% young. And we see basically how it looks like. These numbers grow all the time as we speak about the demographic trends and everything that is happening. I have it on one of the next slides, but as we mentioned, one of the main goals for retirement planning is also maintaining your living standards, and something that we mostly take as granted and we get used to for our working part of life. And then when we go to retirement, suddenly, if we don't have that extra financial stability saved on the side, it might be a problem, especially due to the increased medical costs, maybe all those ideas that we mentioned at the beginning, our wishes that we'd like to fulfill once we are in retirement, because at the moment we are too busy and we have no time. Once our children grow up and we have more time for ourselves, and all these things, whether it's spending more time with your family or traveling or whatever, for all these things we need to have financial means to do that, and to basically not have to worry about all our expenditures. When talking about the demographic crisis and the numbers that we were mentioning a little bit before, I wanted to basically show you this slide, which tells us how things look like at the moment and how they looked like some 20 years ago, and what are the predictions. So as you see, the working age ratio at the moment is some 2.9, maybe even less at the moment, because it's been 3 years ago since this data were calculated, and the predictions for 2050 go even lower. So we are already getting to that 1 point something level, which Giga, if you agree, is showing us that potentially all the systems will have a problem.
Yes, I think here it is what it is, I think, and it's now known for 20, 30 years. This didn't happen overnight. And of course, it will continue because demographic projections are quite reliable, because we exactly know, let's say in Slovenia, we know how many girls are born today in Slovenia. We know that we have an average child in Slovenia, I think at 29 years. Women have their first child, and we have 1.5 child statistically per person. That's it. So we know how many girls were now. We know that in 29 years they will have 1.9 child, and we can run those numbers through the entire population, and for 30, 50 years in advance, we can quite safely assume how the population will be. Then, of course, you have various immigration scenarios, and then that's the only variable. But for your population, you can quite reliably estimate when you will be. And even when you hear politicians say, okay, we will increase fertility rates, people will have more kids. Yes, okay, even if you succeed in that, you need to know that because fertility rates already fell, you have now less women that can give birth to a child. And even if you increase it to from, I don't know, 1.5 to 2, that will have effect in 50 years, because that child needs to be born, then it needs to grow up and get a job and start paying contributions to the retirement system. Only then will it have an effect. So we're talking about really long-term things. So for the next 30, 40 years, we can very safely assume that those numbers that you have up will materialize. And migration can help in one way, but if we're honest, again, we need migrants who will work productively and pay contributions, if we're talking about the pension system. So again, this is a thing that's quite out there, and I think we just need to present it to people, repeat it many times, and people just need to know that the situation is as it is. This is why each of us needs to play a bit of our role. And of course, I think it's also on the governments to facilitate and to help people save also on their own, because governments can play a crucial role here, not just in Pillar 1 pensions, but in really truly supporting private retirement saving of individuals, making it as easy as possible, keep the legislation lean, help really people to save, don't over bureaucratize it.
Yeah, tax optimization, yes.
Tax optimization, of course, and of course now when we're talking about the EU market, make it easy for people to save in multiple countries, transfer their savings, or use products as you described.
Yes, you were just mentioning today one case where maybe you can mention it, where you realized that
still it's according to European legislation, you can't transfer funds from one pension fund to another one if they are in different states, in different countries, because tax incentives are different from country to country, and that's why basically it's not allowed by legislation to, if you're saving in a second or third pension pillar, you can't move your savings around even if you switch jobs. And of course, we know that people are switching more and more jobs, even in countries. So I think there is a need for products that would enable people to save no matter where they are or where their residency is. And this will be for sure a trend for the future. And also, more and more people are working in non-standard working arrangements. So also there will be needed more and more flexibility, because existing saving options are much more tied to where you work. If you work for a large employer and so on, but more and more people work for themselves. And it's really important to also be able to offer products that cater to them, to give them flexibility and be more in line with the current environment, because now more and more people will work not for large employers. They may be self-employed in the future. They might change their location, and this is the reality of the future workforce. And I think pension systems are still catching up to this, because this is the reality of work is changing.
Yes, I have one slide later on we can show as well regarding basically how do the pension systems work in Europe and what are their returns. And it is worth to mention that most of them have a very, I would say, old style strategies. They have high fees in most of the countries, and that also doesn't help the fact that people need to decide to start investing for themselves on their own. As you said, in order to start, we need incentives, we need governments to work on it, we need to give tax benefits, and we like to say that the whole idea behind European Union is to ease this mobility and to make it one market. When it comes to taxes, when it comes to pension systems, it's really far away from that. So PEP as an idea was something to basically support this idea of mobility and to finally allow that people can travel around together with their voluntary pension, which I think we should be able nowadays. And certainly technology allows us that. It's a matter now of regulations and politicians to do their trick, I would say. So I do have one slide later also. If you guys are interested, I can show you. Let's maybe touch base also on third reason I put here, and it's fighting inflation. I think in recent years, especially in the last couple of years, we were all witnesses of very high inflation. For the new generations that have not encountered something like that, it was the first time, and they certainly all learned what inflation is. If they haven't had the knowledge before, now they learned. For us who have lived previously in, for example, ex-Yugoslavia, we knew very well what high inflation is or was, and we knew what it means for the value of our money. As I mentioned earlier, nowadays we do not have really those term accounts in the banks that offer a really nice interest rates. They do hit us with interest rates when it comes to mortgages, loans, and so on, but banks are really reluctant to reciprocate that when it comes to people going to the banks and earning those high interest rates. So inflation, when we talk about some long-term saving and investment, is something that is really, really important to think about. As we know, even if we are not maybe financially very well educated and do not follow macroeconomics, we do know that the value of money decreases year by year, and that for 100 euros we can buy less and less.
True, yeah, we know that coffee is more expensive than it was 3 years ago for sure. Why it is more expensive, it's maybe not even important that people realize, but it is more expensive because of inflation. Inflation is a tax on everybody, and it's like the silent killer of our savings. And this is why, as you said, it's really, really important that our savings are invested, because they just, if they're not, they just lose value. Inflation was in double-digit numbers in the last 3 years. Before, we almost forgot about it, but as you said, some of us still do remember what it is. And I think this is again one lesson why our savings need to be invested, because otherwise they're losing value. And I really liked, you have some calculators online of certain providers, and I think there's a UK one that calculated to you how many pints of beer or cups of coffee 50 euros buys you today, and how much it will, by some estimate of inflation, buy you in 20 years. And that's why it quickly shows you that if your money won't be invested, if you will have it at like zero yield, it will buy you less and less things. So I think this is something that even if you don't understand how inflation works and why it happens, we all need to understand that if we don't have our savings invested, we're really basically losing them. In Slovenia, for example, we are a classic country where we have now, I think, more than 22 billion euros in bank deposits at basically no interest. In whole of pension funds, we have at around 4 billion, and in whole mutual funds, we have another 4 or 5 billion. And that number of deposits, it's just increasing, even though people lost almost 20% in the last 4 years on those deposits because of the inflation. People are still increasing it. Why? I think the lesson here is for us.
You know why? I will tell you why. Because when we talk to our clients, they say, but the money is safe in the bank. It's safe.
Yes,
I say, yes, it's safe, and it's guaranteed that you're going to lose.
Yeah, but
this is the only thing that is going to happen for sure. If you keep it in the bank, you're going to lose the value, and that's for sure.
But one lesson for us, the providers, also to learn, because a lot of times when I also talk with other colleagues in financial industry, people are just saying, oh, people are stupid, they're losing money in the bank, if they could invest it with us. But we all need to realize that having money in a deposit is first really easy, because you get your salary at the bank account, and then at the same bank, you just transfer it to another account, or the bank teller tells you, oh, you can just tie it up in a deposit, you will get something, but it's safe. And people do it because it's there, it's easy, and it's convenient. We all have to ask ourselves how easy it is to start saving in a certain saving product. And usually it's not that easy that we like to think of, because you have to fill out an entry form, you have to choose an investment fund. So I think the lesson of this story is also that we, the providers, need to make saving as easy as possible. And this is also sometimes very tough, because the legislation is very tough and it's not helping people to save easily, because you need to have all kinds of compliance, which is of course a must, but some things I always say can be done safer and easier with less bureaucracy.
Yes, in Slovenia, regulation
yeah, you still have to send to a member that they start saving. You need to send them all the documentation by post, by regular post. You need to send it, and you need to send.
We don't. We have everything digitalized and everything.
We still have to. In Slovenia, we still have to. And of course, when a person gets this kind of fig of the paperwork, they're just scared away and they just don't read it. And we always tell the legislator, the regulator, we have to layer the information, we have to layer the general terms, have it in multiple layers, not to overburden people, because if we just give them more things to read, they will read less and less. So I think it's also
most of them will not understand anyway what is in.
So I think it's also here a lesson to really present little information, but present the important information, present it in a clear way with no jargon, as graphically as possible, and that's it. So I think we really need to make saving and the financial services industry less bureaucratic, because at the same time, an almost teenager can buy cryptocurrency online with basically nothing. So people are going to other products, much less safer products, to all kinds of other things, or they're having all other weird investment options presented to them, and they can conclude them easily, because that's fintech. It's not financial thing. We who are in financial services have to fulfill every possible loophole. And at the end of the day, people whether stay in a deposit. And that's why, let's say, just a few months ago, I read a survey of where people invest, like a really cool survey in the EU. And let's say for Slovenia, it was established that we're totally confused. On one part, ultra conservative, people stay in bank deposits. On the other side, in cryptocurrency.
The highest amount, 18%, yes, in Slovenia, people invest in cryptocurrency. But generally, they say that they are very traditional and they are very conservative when it comes to investing, which is.
But I think in the end is because it's the easiest. It's the easiest to make a bank deposit, and again, it's also very easy to buy cryptocurrency. It's tough to start saving in an ETF.
No. I challenge you to open an account with Finax, because you haven't done so already.
The providers are getting better and better. Yes,
10 minutes. No paperwork, nothing. We are a regulated broker, robo-advisor, European regulated, and I wanted to add basically on what you were saying. While regulation is making us safer, in a way, it's making everything we do more complicated. But we are fintech. We are a company that really works very closely and basically is based on this technology advantages, and we try to automate as much as we can and make things as simple as possible. That was always our goal. And I think, also when it comes then to Pepso as a pension provider in that way, it is very simple. In the countries that we can currently offer it, it takes you exactly the same 10 minutes, and there is no other paperwork needed. While you mentioned cryptocurrencies, yes, I mean, that's very much not regulated, but people need to be educated. And this is exactly what we often try to tell people, that first of all, they need to be very well informed who is their partner, where they save or invest in. Often, exactly as you say, this kind of non-regulated players reach to people much easier than regulated players like us. But it is also part of the education to teach them that this is basically also, there is a lot of mixing when using certain words in terms like investing. Cryptocurrencies are pure speculation. It's not investing. So there is a huge difference between investing and speculating. But yes, nowadays speculation is also something that is being offered everywhere. And I think especially youngsters tend to try these things. And I would say if they have to try, it's better they try when they are young and when they put maybe 100 euros on it than later on. But one of the first steps when you are choosing how you want to make your money work is to basically find a reliable partner and a product that you believe in and that you can trust to, especially when it comes to long-term plans. If you are trying to play and see what you can do in a very, very short term period, then obviously you can maybe play with a little bit of your money with some 5 or 10%, but the rest I would suggest you properly invest and you really make sure that you have a licensed broker and somebody who is basically regulated.
True. I think it's here again. Our behavior in most cases can play against us, because you have many studies who have shown that if you're a really active investor, day trading, in the end you will have in most cases less than a passive investor in an ETF.
Long term,
So,
no way to
so
beat
I think
passive.
here it's, as you said, if you want to spend time or enjoy yourself, or see it as your hobby, to devote some time in it, it's really good. Have a trading account, take it as a hobby, let's say, where you spend your time. But no, for actual saving, have a monthly saving account in something passive, and let the technology work for you here, and disperse it, and that's it. Even if you go to a casino, it's totally okay if you say, okay, I will enjoy myself, I will spend 500 euros and I will have a nice evening. Okay, totally cool with that. But if you actually go there, I will make from that 500 euros 10,000 euros.
2000?
It's a risky strategy. You will maybe succeed, I don't know, 1 in 1,000 chance, you know. It's the same with
That's
really
why casinos are working so well.
That's right. The house always wins. And the same here with most brokerage platforms. You need to keep in mind that they make their money from the commissions, from the trade. They don't care what your end result, what your bottom line is. So I think here again, the marketing is, you see it in the online platforms, they entice you to trade what's moving up, what's moving down. I mean, if I'm saving for
They're
30
betting
years,
against you and all these things
yes,
that people
I don't care what's moving up and down today, because I'm investing in 30 years. So I think here, really, it's not wrong to do it, but as you said, play with one portion of your saving account, the other put it on an automated. Here, the technology, as you said, yes, now you have some providers as yourself that make it easy to start, and then also to keep you on the right track. Let's say we also have in our fund life cycle funds, which are also some support that helps you effortlessly save. And for majority of people, it's a totally okay product to basically keep you away from being overactive yourself, because sometimes it's not. And also, I think to be realistic, how much the yield on a certain investment can give you. I always say to people, the most will come from you actually putting some money aside. If you put 100 euros every month away, put it in an investment, that's the main thing. The investment will cover then the inflation and give you some additional yield. But that's on top. But the biggest effort will have to come from you slicing apart from your income. You can't depend on just the investment making magic from 20 euros per month. You need to put a sizable amount of money away. Of course, when you are young, you will have to start lower, but then increase it, because at the end of the day, your income in retirement, or if you are saving for some other long-term goal, will depend on how much money you will have saved up. That's why I see with a lot of people also now in Slovenia that are saving for retirement, they're saving with insufficient amounts, because they're saying, oh, I'm putting something aside, I'm covered. It's not insurance, you are not covered, it's investment, it's different. So if you're putting 30 euros aside, we can quickly calculate roughly how much you will have with some projections, yeah, plus or minus. You will for sure not have €1 million in your saving account, even after 40 years. So we all need to be aware of even compounding has its limits, especially if it's done safely, not speculatively.
Yeah.
And the most, of course, needs to be you need to put in a sizable amount. And when your salary hopefully grows in time, you need to put more and more, you need to increase it. That's why some providers also offer auto escalation of contributions or syncing it with inflation every year. These are also all some small features that in 30, 40 years can make a big difference. But also being realistic, we know what long-term yields on equity are, and you will be somewhere in that range, plus or minus, but that's it. So you can't expect wonders, and that's why you need to put a sizable amount or increase it with time when your income allows you to. But I think the biggest part, you need to do it on yourself, how much you can carve out from your income, that then still enables, of course, you to live a normal life. But you need to put some sizable amount on the side.
Yes, they say that good investing is watching the paint dry on the paper. So basically, it's very boring.
It
And
shouldn't be interesting. It shouldn't be sexy. It shouldn't be even maybe something you particularly like.
yes,
Not specific. It's just a tool, and that's why you have products that enable you to do it. And
and you
not,
should go and enjoy your life and do the other things that interest you, and let
of
the
course,
money work.
monitor regularly, but not too regularly. Keep your hand on it, but not overdo it, because at the end of the day,
Do
it
not
does.
read all the bombastic headlines
Yes.
because the end of
Yes.
the
I
world is
mean, I
coming
always
every
say to people, you are not looking daily how much electricity you use in your house, how much water I mean, you watch it every couple of months or something like that, but you don't do it daily. So also, if you invest in a dispersed equity portfolio, I mean, it's no use looking at it daily, worrying yourself, because it's dispersed and it's long term. That's it.
Yes, I think you've mentioned everything. Maybe we go to the fourth fourth point I put here is leaving a legacy. Everyone who has children knows what I'm talking about. But even without children, I think everyone tends to take care of their families and think about the ways they can secure their future. So it's also one thing that we want to think about when making our plans for retirement and investing for our future, no matter how long we might actually enjoy that retirement, hopefully as long as possible. But we also want to make sure that in case something happens, we can help our children and our family to go ahead, I would say, without too many financial problems, because in times of crisis is, I think, the last thing we want to worry about, the finances. And as we mentioned earlier, all the medical expenses and all that kind of stuff. You said the prices are increasing constantly, and the healthcare is deteriorating in that way. What we are basically entitled to from the normal, I would say, packages or system that we have, and we do have to invest more and more into our own medical care and expenses. So from that point of view, it's also important to think about retirement planning as something that we can leave behind us or secure both ourselves and our families.
Yeah, as you said, I think we all would like to support ourselves if possible in retirement, or even better, we would like to help our kids maybe buy that first apartment or whatever, help them in their life. So I think the goal, because sometimes you hear the replacement rate, which basically means how much of your salary your retirement should be, that it should be at around 70% of your pre-retirement salary. I always say the target should be 100%. The target should be that your income will not fall when you retire. That means that your public and private pension should be, their sum should be the same as your salary, and that it would enable you to build up some savings that you could, of course, pay if needed for of course, firstly for your holiday, for your nice living in retirement. Then if would need it for some medical expenses or a retirement home or something like that. We know an average retirement home in Slovenia costs 1,500 per month per person, and the average pension in Slovenia is at around 800 euros. So we see even today there's a huge problem if a person needs to go to a retirement home. They're 700 euros short, and that can happen over the night, and that's reality. I had my grandmother with a similar episode a few years ago. She needed 24-hour care. Her pension, because she was alone, she was a widow, she didn't work for a long time, was at around 700 euros. So the rest of the family kicked in.
That's even good, because it's Slovenia, but I can tell that in many European countries that would be much lower than 700.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's then the reality, because over the night you can be faced with a big amount that you can't cover. And that's the harsh reality of life that sometimes happens. We all like to think, because of optimism bias. I read quite a lot of optimism bias, which is basically ingrained deeply in us, because most of us believe that nothing bad will happen to us in the future. That's why we tend to forget to wear helmets when we're riding our bikes. We don't watch that much in our cars, because we think the accident will happen to another guy. Somebody else will get cancer, because these are all really depressing thoughts that you think about them and you rather avoid them. But we just need to be realistic that some bad things can happen, and it's good that we have some money aside if they happen. If they won't happen, even better, we will leave it to our kids, as you had in your slides, as some form of legacy. I think it's really important. Everyone who has kids would like to leave something to their kids, or at least won't leave them bills, because even that can happen.
That's the thing, self-respect, when you start being dependent on your children or whatever, then it's also a matter of your self-respect and how you feel that after all these years, now you have to, instead of them living their lives and starting to save for themselves and their children, they have to take care of you.
So I think the main here is, let's try to build as much saving as possible, spending on positive things, and be prepared if something unexpected happens, having that money on the side. That's I also think it's important for saving products to be flexible, even how you decumulate them, to have the flexibility. Even here, legislation can support you a lot to have multiple options. That's why I also think for retirement saving, which used to be quite conservative, it's important to give people more choices here. Legislation we also need to change to give people more and more freedom that they like to spend their saving how they like them, because end of the day it's people saving. And I see in Europe quite a lot of countries limit how people can spend their retirement savings.
Yes, and the problem is also about the strategies. Exactly, as you mentioned, they tend to be really conservative in most of the countries, especially this first pillar, over conservative. If you use, for example, platform like Finax, and you go there and you just play with the numbers and you insert, like you said, 30 euros on 40 years, and you will see what are your projections and how much you can get. And it's based on obviously historical data. So we have to know that things can change, but there is always, you have a pessimistic calculation, optimistic, and I would say realistic. And this is one of the problems as well. That's when you have such a long horizon, and with retirement you do have a long horizon, you need to go more dynamically into it, and you have to allow the strategy to be very well diversified, not to I would say prioritize a local, maybe equity or local bonds or local governments ideas, because this is often what happens. If you look at Croatia, for example, the first pillar is incredibly conservative. Second pillar, I don't even want to mention, but it's basically an ATM machine for the government. And then you get the third pillar, which is also basically regulated and is also not diversified. And nowadays there is absolutely no reason why your portfolio would not be diversified, why your third pillar wouldn't be invested in, equities from all over the world in the best possible ETFs, except for the political will. And this is where the problem lays also, because when people do think about starting their third pillar, they're thinking, but the strategy is not really good. So in a way, it is good to start saving and using maybe the tax benefits and everything to a point, but as you say, it can be much better. It could be done much better, and this is something that people have to understand, that this diversification is important in many ways, not just that you have different regions. So you're not, if we talk about an average Croatian, has a house or apartment in Croatia, works, receives a salary in Croatia, has first, second, and third pillar, everything invested basically in Croatian bonds and equity and whatever. So in that sense, if something happens to Croatian economy, it is very much going to affect this person's retirement plans, right? So I know that it is the case in many other European countries as well, which haven't opened at least this third pillar to bigger diversification, to wider diversification. And this is why I think it's important to talk about it, that just because there is a product doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you, and that you should maybe have a look at the strategy. Generally, we always say, and when you go through onboarding with any robo-advisor, what the robo-advisor does is basically algorithm, and it asks you questions which are necessary for the algorithm to calculate the optimum strategy for you. But it's based on many things, but one of the main things is exactly your horizons, your investing horizons. So if you have a long horizon, even though you don't have any knowledge, I would say, or experience with ETFs and with investing, you can allow yourself much more dynamic strategy than often retirement plans allow you to. Yeah. And that means losing on performance over many years, and on that compound interest that would be higher.
Yeah, what you mentioned were like two classic biases. Home bias, people tend to invest in things they are familiar with, and they, in most cases, overinvest in stocks, equities, or bonds from their own country. As you said, then you build up risk. Or in America, it was also very popular a few years ago to invest in your retirement savings in the stocks of the company where you work for, company stock. We know what can happen in the Enron case. And yeah, as you still said, in Europe, it's very much present. Everywhere around the world, people tend to invest in stocks from their own country, even that there's an extra reason they should invest in stocks from other countries, diversified, because then you are sharing risks. Otherwise, you are just building it. And as you said, if something happens with the economy of your country, your public pension suffers, your private pension suffers, and you can lose your job. So you have free risks. And if possible, you should disperse those risks. That's the only sensible thing. And also on the other side, we are overly conservative in most cases. We are scared of investing in equity, but we need to know that on long term, equities perform better than bonds. Long term, in the last 100 years, and you can read all kinds of books from Nobel laureates. It's proven all crises rebounded, but you had to stay invested and you needed to look long term. Also, I believe in when you are still drawing down your pension, even in retirement, you should have a lot of your money in equities, because you will live in retirement, as we said before, for average 25 years. That's also a long period. Why would you go into overly
the money has to still work for you.
Yeah.
This is also a problem of the
Yes.
pillars.
So now people still in the first saving stage are overly conservative, but I think then the next stage is also the drawdown phase. People are there ultra conservative, and also legislation in some countries really limits the providers. But I really see no reason why you wouldn't be still invested a lot in equities, even when you draw down your private savings, because you need to know you will always get the public pension, which is ultra conservative. Why would you be also ultra conservative in your private savings? I think that's here again, as you said, if they are invested in a globally diversified portfolio. Of course, if you invested in free equities from your own country, then God help you.
Yes, we always say don't put all the eggs in the same basket.
But if you invest it properly, I think even when you start drawing down, you can of course totally safely be in majority equity portfolio. Of course, you will have some fluctuations, but you will not live any badly if you have some fluctuations, if you have already a base of your public pension, which is ultra conservative, and maybe some other income. But I think these are home bias, and really being ultra conservative in the end costs you money, because as you said, you have inflation and you're missing on 40 or 50 years of yields if you're not investing in majority equity portfolio. And this is again probably comes to the education. We know that in continental Europe, capitalism is well, in half of continental Europe is present only for 30 plus years. We are still not used to it. We didn't have experience in it. And in the other part of continental Europe, there were other saving product, more insurance-linked product, more developed. And I would say probably UK and some Nordic countries are the only exception to this, which no capital markets. We know in the Netherlands, they had the first mutual fund historically. Okay, in Italy, you had the first state bonds in the 16th century, but it also goes down a lot to the history of the actual stock markets. In Slovenia, okay, we had a stock exchange before the First World War, then it was closed. People just don't have experience in capital markets. I think now they need to slowly build them. In the last 30 years, okay, this process has started, but needs to be supported more fully, more openly, with education, with exposing our kids to it, and also talking about it openly. Not still hearing over conservative politicians talking about things in most cases even they don't understand, to be honest, because capital markets, I think, are still understood by, I don't know, I was just in Warsaw at the conference, saving conference last week. We're just toying around with the numbers. Maybe 5% of people understand how equity markets work. For majority, it's still a mystery. But still, I think we need to have products that are easy, safe for masses to use, and to nudge them as easy as possible to get them on the right path, even if they don't understand how the actual product is working.
Yes, I mean, from that perspective, regulation is something that will help, for example, on European level, I would say, because, for example, PEP is highly regulated and it's really tough. And just in order to get a license to provide PEP, you have to prove that in over 80% of the times you beat inflation on the long run. You have to have, I don't know how many calculations and models. It's really incredible what you need to do in order to be able to provide a product. And also, for example, you do have this de-risking phase, which is 10 years before you go to your retirement. And now it again depends on the local regulation or on the certain country. But for example, in Croatia, if you go retirement age 65, it means that starting 55, your strategy, we have two strategies when it comes to PEP. One is 100% equity, and one is and the other one is 80-20. So in this de-risking phase is depending on the local laws, also depending if it's a woman, if it's a man. So there's so many things that get calculated by the algorithm. It starts basically decreasing this amount of equity to 60-40, which is also in the payout phase. So as you said, there is no need to go overly conservative in the actually retirement phase and the payout phase. You still need to have your money work for you. So in that way, it's really important that you still have a good quality strategy for the years to come, because as you mentioned, we calculate with some 20 plus years of retirement. So in order to have that money there, you really need to leave the money work for you. I have a next slide because the time is running quickly. We have already basically talked about it, so we can go ahead and basically go for the next point. I just wanted to mention here that with this point, being ready for emergency and medical expenses, what we mentioned, I think it's also good to realize that while in younger age we tend to have friends, or maybe a bank is more inclined to help us with a loan or whatever, but once we actually get to some age, these things can become more difficult. So it's also something that we need to be aware that while maybe nowadays we have more options in case of emergency, if we don't have emergency fund or a financial reserve, as we like to call it, which definitely shouldn't be your retirement plan, but should be something different that you are planning for exactly this kind of cases. But it comes with the age, and we cannot run away from that. So it's really good to be aware of that. I think a 7th point that we have here is really...
Maybe just, Tamara, on this note, as you said, when you are old, the bank will not give you credit. You will not be able to get installments. And also, a lot of people now are covered by private medical insurance. Most private medical insurance stop at 60 or 65. You're not covered above it. That's just the end line. There isn't a product for which I know of private medical insurance for people who are retired or who are 70.
Who actually need it. Who actually need it, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, now you're, as you said, overly covered because you're young.
Yes.
In most cases, you will not use it, or you will use it for like small amounts. But when you will need it, you're not covered anymore. And the money you put aside, you didn't put aside, you just spent it on the coverage. It's not saved anywhere. So I think, as you said, now when you're working, you're under the false umbrella, and that umbrella doesn't continue when you retire. It suddenly ends, and it ends quite badly in most cases.
Yes, and then it's a reality check that
you need to pay. You go to a specialist. We just had a colleague retiring in Slovenia. In our fund who works, a colleague, she just retired and she broke her hip. Almost the moment she retired. Really bad luck.
It's like having a 2-year warranty on your phone or something, and then of course it breaks down the day after.
She would be able to get an operation covered by the basic medical care. She would need to wait more than a year and a half was the waiting line, and she was in pain every day and not being able to walk. She paid for it, and it costed her a little less than 10,000 euros. And she was, in a matter of 14 days, she got the operation. So you're faced over the night with a very, very brutal choice. Whether this is right or wrong, it's not for us to debate, but it's the reality. There are limits to what you are covered. And in some cases, at least in Slovenia, I know in many other countries, the waiting lines for certain procedures are ridiculously long.
Especially if you have a cancer or something, you basically don't live.
Mainly long. So for a hip in Slovenia, it was a year and a half. If she paid for it, she was there in like 14 days, and it costed her almost 10,000 euros. If you don't have it, you're not operated. It's as brutal as it can get.
Yeah. We recently have a situation, I mean, just to say how brutal these things are, even if you're younger. And our son had a really bad fall during skiing in December in Italy, and he broke his humerus bone completely. And as a parent, what do you do? We just go to the first. They have really amazing clinics there. We went to one clinic which was 5 minutes away. Of course, it's private and everything, and they were amazing. But if you don't have insurance that is covering it, it was, and he was in surgery within 3 hours. But yes, we had to say if we want to pay or we have a coverage for that. So we have insurance. Otherwise, we would need to go to a hospital in Bolzano, drive with a child that is in excruciating pain, 6-year-old, and wait for surgery for I don't know how long, because this one costed exactly 10,000 euros.
Yep.
So
it's quickly very, very big amounts. It can go quickly. Yep.
So yes, if we know if our health is in jeopardy, then it is really a priority. It's not something that we are not going to end up paying anyways, but it is good to think about it and to know that this kind of financial reserve we always have to have, but especially when the age of retirement approaches. And this is something I think also that is basically mentioned here, that in order to avoid stress-related financial problems, we do need to start building our wealth, and we have to think about the fact that even, yes, these small sums can help us. And often when we talk about retirement, we, as you said, we always prolong it, and we always say, yes, we are going to do it, but the amount of time that we prolong it for will catch up with us one day, because these even small amounts of money could already work for us, and then suddenly we will need to make up for this amount of money that we haven't invested before, and there is going to be a gap. And one day when we wake up and we realize that we really need to do it, we are going to regret not starting earlier.
True. I think having an emergency saving account and having a retirement or a future account, I think those are
top financial goals that you need to start with.
Because as you said, financial stress, I read one survey, is the biggest stress people have in their daily lives, is stress related to their financial situation. It's not their health, it's their financial situation. So I think because on the other side, as we said, we are bombarded by marketing to buy things, get into debt, get a big mortgage, pay something in installments. And over the night, you can quickly be in debt over your head. And of course, this is really, really, really stressful. And really work on avoiding it first, and then really work on building the skill to start setting some money aside automatically every month, even if starting with small amounts, almost forgetting about it, not being then too involved, but then just letting it build up, and then as your career progresses, try to put some more things in it and teach your kids to do the same when you have them.
Yes, I think you wrap it up as I put on the slide. I think here are a few key steps just to wrap up what we were talking about. But I think one of the key points that we were mentioning, that it is important to start making better financial decisions now in the present, from the budgeting, maybe going to a more minimalistic approach to the one that we are used to. So basically giving ourselves a day or two to think about maybe things that have purchasing things that have a high value, rethinking if we really need those things or not. Setting up our goals and making money work for us is essential, as we mentioned. While they might be safe in the bank, from the perspective that nobody is going to take them away, one thing that is certain, the money is going to lose value, and if we are planning to use that money in 20, 30, 40 years, then it means that even though we saved it in the bank account, we are looking at gradual decrease in the value of that amount. From other tips, of course, if you have some loans which have high interest rates, that's always a very good idea to pay off if possible. If the interest rate is not as big, and you can work with money and in a way make it bring you more profit, then you can go ahead and have those loans basically work for you. Other than that, the number 3 here, very important, that investment always comes before spending. As Žiga also mentioned a few times, automate your finances, pay yourself first, make sure that the money is going where it has to go at the beginning of the month, and then you can spend whatever you have left. Often people say, oh, I'm going to send it at the end of the month, but then for some reasons they buy new shoes or new phone or this or that, and at the end of the month they don't send anything to their saving/investing account. So it is really a good strategy to pay yourself first. Choose a reliable partner, both your life partner, because our finances do very much, I would say, depend on who we live with and share our lives with, and our values. And also in terms of investing and having a reliable and regulated partner, as we mentioned. Stay away from fashionable trends. Always keep track on your strategy, and if it's leading you to the goal, no need to be too active when it comes to changing strategies and everything. There is a reason. For example, algorithm sets a certain strategy for us. Of course, in the long term, with better knowledge and understanding of investing, you can increase even your dynamics when it comes to strategy, but it also depends on the horizon that you have in front of yourself. Yes, I think another thing that is good to mention is that while we don't like to think about us leaving this world, it is very important to maybe think about the paperwork and I would say informing our family members about our investments, about our financial accounts and everything else. Maybe write up a will of how we want our assets to be managed and split after we leave this world. But it is something that is, I would say, very responsible to do, and inevitably that day will come sooner or later. So it is something that is going to make their lives easier later on. We tend to see also how the clients deal with that afterwards, and in times of pain, this is the last thing you want to worry about. And we all know that sometimes then we can see different tensions in families and stuff. So if you take care of that in advance, then that's one thing less to worry about. I don't know, Žiga, if you want to mention something else that I have
maybe what you
we haven't touched.
all great lessons, but I think really the toughest part is to start. So really start, give yourself a nudge or give someone else a nudge to start saving. I think the most important thing is to start, as you said, with a reliable partner. If your hairdresser or butcher gives you stock advice, then it's time to quit the market and don't listen to it. And really just start. It's maybe also we also need to tell people, also we who are daily dealing with it, it's really tough to save. So you're not alone. It's really tough because every day you have more and more expenses, more ideas from not yourself, even maybe from others. where you should spend your money. And so it's really tough. So it's tough for everyone, also us working
It's a
here.
discipline that we need to train.
Really tough, but also that you don't eat the whole cake. Also, don't spend all the money. It is tough. It's a daily thing to keep in mind. Try to battle a bit against the current, but really, after a bit longer time, when you see that your investments are growing, you feel quite good when you look at your saving account. And as you said, it empowers you. It gives you really some good feelings. And I think then you will look forward to the period of your life when maybe you will not have to work so much and live off that saving, or at least they will be able to offer you a good life. So I think let's all try to work in that direction. It's tough, but that's the goal, I think.
Yes. Thank you, Riga. Now I would like to answer to these questions that we have, and also go back to the slide that I promised you earlier on. Antonio was asking us from our experiences, what is the best age to start investing in PEP? Isn't it better for youngsters in 20s to invest in other products like wealth building to able to withdraw in it? Antonio, very good question. Question that we receive very often. I guess Antonio is from Croatia. I would say from his name. So I will basically answer when it comes to Croatian PEP. Croatian PEP, as I mentioned earlier, has a possibility of being withdrawn at the age of 55 completely, so 100%, while the other products of the third pillar have a possibility of only 30% of withdrawing at the moment of 55. At the age of 35. So there is this basically extra benefit of PEP that you can withdraw 100%, so entire account. Now, whether that's an advantage or disadvantage depends really on a person. If you really, Antonio, want to have this as your account for retirement, I do believe that it's good to keep it in PEP. Why? Because PEP, first of all, in comparison to the other strategies of intelligent investing, so you can choose 100% of intelligent investing, which is exactly the same strategy like 100% PEP, but the difference is in fee. So the fee is lower when it comes to PEP, which on long run helps a lot. That's one thing. And second thing is, as I said, if you're somebody who can control yourself, then maybe you can have it in a normal account as well, and you can withdraw at any point. That's definitely benefit of being flexible and not having the money basically wrapped in a pension product as PEP is. So these are the things I would say, the main things to think about. In Croatia, the legislation says that even a baby, just born baby, can already open a PEP account, which means that all the parents can open the accounts for their children. In this way, they are definitely going to secure their better financial future, because even though it's in their name, they are not able to withdraw anything when they are 18, right? So the first possibility will be when they are 55, unless, I have to say, there is also this benefit of Croatian PEP that if you are unemployed for more than 12 months, you're also allowed to withdraw the entire amount. So in this kind of cases, you can get to that money even if you are younger than 55. So this is, I would say, these are the basic things that you need to take into consideration, Antonio. While a total fee for PEP is 0.72 together with VAT, the normal intelligent investing has 1.2 if you don't have any discounts yearly, right? We talk about yearly amounts. There are no other fees connected to PEP or intelligent investing. There's only one yearly fee. While with normal portfolios, you have this flexibility that you can withdraw at any time, even though you set your horizon to 40 years. with PEP, yes, you do have these restrictions that you basically have to wait until you're 55 unless you are unemployed for more than 12 months. I hope this answers your question. If you have any other questions, please feel free to write to our email address at client@finax.eu, and we will help you no matter which country you are from. We have our back office that takes care of these things. And also, Thomas was asking that he's from Ireland and he works in Germany and is waiting for PEP provider to enter the market. Does Finax have plans to enter the German market? Yes, earlier on this year, Finax took over Ion Investment Services, including ETF-Matic, which was basically the first real European robo-advisor. And in that sense, we did start I would say, our strategic movements towards the Western markets. And I can say that at the moment we are working on opening up a branch office in Germany. And definitely Finax is intending to be present in Germany. And yes, depending on the legislation and stuff, as soon as we will be able to, we are going to enter the markets that have the most, I would say, attractive legislation for PEP. I have to say, for example, Žiga, Slovenia, in that sense, is nowhere to be seen at the moment, but I do hope that things improve there as well, because, for example, you have quite good benefits for the third pillar, and the legislation when it comes to this tax optimization or tax benefits in terms of PEP hasn't been made yet. So for us to enter the market, the product has to be able to be attractive to clients. Otherwise, it makes no sense if we cannot compete with the third pillars. But the main idea behind it is actually to be really competitive and to, in a way, shaken up the third pillars and the competition with our extremely low fee. And this is what is happening in the countries where we are present at the moment. We are beating them easily with our yields and with our low fee, even if, let's say, they have maybe some benefit of state incentive. In Croatia, the third pillar has the benefit of state incentive up to 100 euros a year. But even with that, Finax is already in the, I think, fifth year or something, is beating them, and then in the long run there is no real competition for us amongst third pillars. So yes, we do intend to open up a branch office in Germany and be present in Germany by the end of this year, I hope. There is one more chart I promised you guys, and this is the one showing basically private pension schemes around Europe. All I want to say here, this is average inflation. So this is average inflation adjusted 10-year return after fees and before taxes. So from 2012 to 2021. You can see here on the left the return, and here on the right fees. So what I'm trying to show you here that is exactly what we were talking about, that we have very conservative strategies around Europe, and that we also do tend to have quite high fees. So when we think of low yields and high fees, we do know that that's not a very good formula for our investments. And we do hope that the fact that Finax is entering more and more markets, and we hope there will be more players, more competition. In this way, we are working to better the systems, and at the end of the day, provide clients with better products and with better service. Giga, anything you want to add on PEP?
On PIP, as you said, initial legislation was very promising. Now you are actually making the product and trying to get it registered in countries. You're also experiencing the difficulties. How
Yes,
difficult?
being a pioneer is not that easy.
Yeah,
Everything
that comes with being Christopher Columbus or whoever. So yeah, I wish all good luck with Finax. As you said, competition is good. It's raising the bar. Fees need to go down in the industry. Of course, the shift needs to go to more equity investments. And I think that's in the end only good for clients. And regulators needs to support the competition. And then in the end, it will be better results for the clients and make it, as I said, of course, safe, but also not to forget easy for people to start saving. With modern technology, as you said, it can be done easily, but yeah, this needs to have also the support of the legislation and of the supervisors in each country. And just to give people in Europe really a chance to save for their future as easy as possible, wherever they are, in what kind of form they are working for, because more and more people will be in this kind of situation and people are changing. That's why also products need to evolve and change, and we all need to be on our toes to provide people with this kind of solutions. Otherwise, they will start to go look elsewhere. So I think we all in the industry need to give our game up and really provide the solutions people need, because now in some cases they are not optimal and they could be better.
Yes, I mean, definitely nowadays technology is not an obstacle anymore. So it's all about the legislation and the regulation and how to make it work. Basically, for the idea that everyone has to simplify these products, to make them really simple and available and much cheaper than, unfortunately, nowadays products are, which also needs to be an incentive for people to start taking care of their retirement and to, in a way, push them in that way and motivate them to start doing that by giving them better benefits, to making it more accessible and better, so that actually they do see some kind of sense in it.
Yeah, we really need some more bold political decisions, not over bureaucratize it. If Europe is any serious with making capital markets union, I think they really need to support financial services more and really develop this market, not just talk about it, but really develop it. That means make it easy to do business and to make products and support people in their goals.
Yes. Thank you so much, Giga. It was a great pleasure for me to have you as a guest today. Thank you for your really valuable insights. I really enjoyed this discussion, and I hope our viewers enjoyed it too.
Thanks for having me, and it was a great conversation.
Thank you. And for you guys, this webinar is going to be available on our YouTube channel, Finax International. So if you haven't seen some parts of it, or you want to go back and re-listen or watch something, please feel free to do so. And I'm looking forward to see you next time in one of our podcasts and webinars. And definitely I'm looking forward to Giga to having you again as a guest in one of my webinars or podcasts.
Thanks, and thanks to people. I hope they find it interesting.
Thank you. Goodbye and have a nice evening.